the Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer being tied together, that's really probably the lead news topic.
Yeah, and we mentioned it yesterday. I thought he was just going to tell me, like, no, not necessarily, or just kind of keep things open. But, I mean, that says, yeah, if Mike's back, then Zimmer's back. Or it would seem to indicate if Mike's back, then Zimmer's back. If Mike's not back, then we're probably resetting a defensive coordinator. But the other thing I had reflected on afterwards was the fact that I think Jerry accidentally tattled on himself a little bit. You know, when you hear somebody say something and they say something out of a context that it's like, that clicks together and kind of runs counter to something you said over here, and now I'm wondering what you're talking about. So when they talk about the Micah Parsons thing, and I understand they're trying to downplay it after it kind of blew up, after it got asked about in the locker room and Micah had the reaction he did. But he says that's never been uttered here in the walls of the Star. Nobody's ever even considered moving on from Micah Parsons, never, not once. So if things are as tight financially as he spent a lot of the interview talking about, and as much as Steven has laid the groundwork for, then are we really to believe that there's not anybody in that building who has suggested, guys, we might have to look at trading him, or at least, hey, got to throw this idea out there that this needs to be an option we talk about because that's a lot of money there. Show of hands, are we all cool with keeping him around? Okay, cool. Even if it's like that, I know there's no chance they haven't done their due diligence on the idea of, do we pay a giant amount of money here? He always tells us, man, when you're writing that big check, you better be sure about it. You better do those things. So for him to say it's never been uttered, that tells me one or two things. Either he's lying about that, not lying, you know what I'm saying? He's fibbing about,
yes,
nobody's ever said that. Or the reality is they are more comfortable navigating the salary cap and the constraints they have right now than they're leading on. And that they don't think it's as tight, and they do have a firm handle on, I know exactly where to navigate around this financially.
He has to say it publicly. There's your answer, and you know that. He has to say. He's not going to say, those types of decisions, you always go back and forth. Although sometimes in these negotiations with their bigger players, he will insult them.
Yeah, he did it with Dak a lot.
Zeke who? Yeah. CeeDee Lamb. There's normally an insult, and I figured Stevens was a negotiating ploy to throw it out there first, because I think of all the guys who value that logo, that star that you see on every truck and every business that steals it and doesn't give the Cowboys their copyright and trademark infringement costs. Micah Parsons, I think, loves the idea and thought of being a Dallas Cowboy. This is just a guess.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He loves the thought of being a Dallas Cowboy even more, so he would be scared not to play here.
You remember he got criticized for it, and I'm not comparing them as players at all, but you remember how important it was to Jalen Smith to be a Cowboy just for his own, the things he was doing his brand and off the field. That's the same sort of thing. I think Micah has a similar perspective that Jalen Smith did, where it's like, hey, that's a lot of value to me that I don't get otherwise. That's a lot of, I have big plans to be, like we mentioned yesterday. If he's with the Titans, Micah is not the head of football content at Bleacher Report. It's just not happening. So he does have that value in there, and he does place it. I still think, and I know we talked about this during a break yesterday, if you look at Micah saying, I want to save money for them. I'm going to save money and do this, give him a $10 million break. What's 30 to 40 million? What does that matter? Well, in today's NFL, that's not a ton to begin with. 10 million is the new 5 million. Here are the guys who signed for 10 million annually last year. This is what you could have gotten, or what you might be able to get if Micah Parsons saves that money for you.
RJ Choppy's going to love this topic. You name a bunch of scrubs, because I've always fought with him over saving plus saving plus saving equals an actual player.
Kenny Moore, cornerback, Colts. John Runyon, guard, Giants.
Still playing.
Danico Autry, edge rusher, Texans. Decent spot edge rusher. Andrew Van Ginkel, linebacker, Vikings. He's played well. It's not a big splash guy, but he's played well. Leonard Floyd, edge rusher for the 49ers.
Hurt Aaron Rodgers, which you'll see tonight on Netflix.
Jadeveon Clowney, Carolina, who I'll be honest, when I turned on the film to watch Carolina last week, going, oh yeah, Clowney's here. That's what clicked into place for me. Mike Williams, receiver for the Jets. And then Sam Darnold, quarterback for the Vikings, who has played well, but was not anticipated to be $10 million. Now, just below that at 9.75, Tyler Biadasz. So if we're talking about who would you be able to keep or who would you be able to add, the difference might be, all right, Micah saving them that money means Tyler Biadasz comes back. And that's a player that probably would have helped with some of the lumps and learning curve that they've had on the offensive line. But is that enough of a save or enough of an addition when Micah looks at it to go, never mind, I'll actually take $10 million then. $10 million in
what
Cooper
about Derrick
Beebe?
Henry?
Sure. Yeah, Derrick Henry, you could
Derrick
do
Henry
that.
is making $8 a year.
Sure. Now, you could do that. The idea, though, being if Micah's talking about people to build around with him, Derrick Henry's probably here a year or two. If you sign that deal.
Don't be so literal with they have to be young building block pieces. Like, let's add to the team to help him.
Well, and do you think I would assume the Cowboys would use it more if they got that $10 million and they had to save it. I would assume they would use that more to retain people like Biotis than go get somebody like Henry. That's just what I would guess. I guess I can't know for sure, but that's what I would assume they would do. And that's a good player, but is that a good enough player that Micah looks and goes, well, never mind, Cooper Beebe and $10 million, I'll take that.
Dan Orlovsky was up to his old tricks again yesterday. He was on McAfee, and they were bringing up Mike Vrabel, and he's like, I think Vrabel's already spoken for. Dan does this little... I'm gonna put my hand on the hot stove and then I'm gonna take it off real quick. And he's like, I think Mike Vrabel's already spoken for. And McAfee stops down and he's like, whoa, what? What? And he's like, I'm not a reporter. Guys. I'm not gonna go into it too much more.
You're not even a broadcaster.
So there's Orlovsky strongly suggesting Mike Vrabel has his next job. The internet is trying to say it's Ohio State. Orlovsky would not expand, but either way, Bobby, it sounds like Mike Vrabel going to be taken off the board or already is off the board, and that broke my Cowboy heart just a little bit more. They're going to let this board dry up. They're going to let this board just go ahead and get plucked by everyone else and then be left with McCarthy.
Dude, there's not a lot of, when you look at this is thought to be a weak offseason for coaching candidates, I think, in general. When I was making that list a couple weeks ago, where we're looking at the different coaches that you could come up with if you gave certain answers. When you look at the names, so Belichick's off the board. So you have Vrabel right now, who, by the way, if Vrabel has another job lined up, that to me says he doesn't think Dallas is coming open. Because I 100% believe Vrabel would wait to see what happens in Dallas before he'd do anything. Because I think Mike Vrabel wants this job if it comes open.
Really?
Yes. And so Vrabel's got a great relationship with the Joneses too, and so I think he would love to be here. But I mean, after Vrabel, you're looking at these names. Does this sound like just get you all worked up? Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Flores, Robert Saleh, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's a big name, but Cowboys probably aren't going there. Joe Brady, offensive coordinator from the Bills, again, big name, but Cowboys probably aren't going there. If you're talking about guys who have coached before, they're probably talking about Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Flores, Robert Saleh, and Vance Joseph.
What about Pete Carroll?
That'd be interesting. I mean, if we're talking about just pushing something over the edge, if you want to go make a Parcells, at that point, if not Pete Carroll, I mean, he'd probably say no because of how much he got fed up with NIL, but call Saban. Call Carroll, and just say, hey, just want to throw it out there. Just curious if you'd be interested in talking about it.
Nick Wright on FS1 on why the Cowboys need to lose out.
The team that needs to lose the final 3 games of the year more than any other team is the New York Giants. The second pick in that draft is Las Vegas Raiders. And the third pick is the Dallas Cowboys. No, the Giants and Raiders need to do it because they're fighting for the number 1 pick, and with a win they could fall to 5 or 6. The Cowboys need to do it because if they don't, I think you're right. If they do lose the final 3, at this point, I think McCarthy's a betting favorite to be brought back. Mm-hmm. I think Jerry is looking for a reason to do it. This year's so bad, it now fully resets the expectations clock.
Yeah.
And now next year, what's the goal?
12-5.
Get back to the playoffs.
It's true.
Just
it's
win.
a great year.
We
made the playoffs.
Win the division. Look what happened last year. And then if you lose in the playoffs, it's like, well, what'd you expect? Like, look at what last year was. Yeah. And then we're just back to where you hope to be this season in like 2027. It's stupid. It's a bad plan. It's a bad process.
I think he's absolutely right. The expectation gets reset and we go backwards because of what you continue to fight every day on Twitter.
You know, this is the Twitter, the Cowboys Twitter fan has come full 180. They are all about This team was just screwed over by injuries. And look, they're already close. We should be 7-7. I mean, we're in a great position here, guys. That's kind of the feeling you're getting from Cowboys fans on Twitter, at least. Not so much fan text. Fan text is a little more split. But the next question we need to start, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think McCarthy's going to be gone. But the next question we probably need to start looking ahead to the offseason and coming up with names for is who's going to be calling plays next year. Because if Mike's back, it might be on the condition of you're not calling plays. So it's like, all right, well, it's at least been flirted with enough that now we need to start figuring out if there's just what offensive coordinator names are going to be targeted. And I wonder if they bring him back, the stipulation isn't, all right, well, Jason Witten's going to be your coordinator. And tough that you maybe feel like somebody's over your shoulder, but this is what we're doing. And you get another year.